This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories. The Bad Batch commence a heist on a beach planet. While they have managed to get the goods, they are being chased down by some local crab creatures. Back at the Havoc Marauder, Omega is studying the different types of ships when the distress call from the rest of the team comes in, preparing to go off and help them. Omega sees that some of the crab creatures have got onto the ship, and knocked to the side, she begins to knock them off of the Marauder. Managing to escape from the planet, they head back to Ornamental, where they meet up with Sid. After meeting one of her allies, they are told about a mission that she wants them to go on. And for this mission, they are to go and infiltrate the late Count Dooku's palace and steal from his war chest. With it, Hunter initially refuses, but the rest of the team convinces him to go and do this mission so they could have a future set and be able to go into hiding. On the way to the mission, Hunter and Echo get into an argument about what they should be doing, with Hunter thinking that they just need to simply survive, and Echo thinks that they need to be fighting back against the Empire. Landing on the planet, Hunter makes a plan for him to cause a distraction as the rest of the team goes and breaks into the facility to steal some of Dooku's stuff. And while it's working initially, Wrecker decides to knock out one of the clones patrolling. And after that has happened, they realize that their timetable just moved up quickly and the distraction needs to be set now since they'll soon notice that this clone is missing. With it, Hunter sets off multiple explosives that he set on V-Wings, causing a distraction. But the clone in charge realizes what's going on and orders for the cargo ship to launch. With it, Wrecker manages to get out with a little bit of treasure, but the rest of the batch are trapped inside. Wrecker goes to meet up with Hunter as the ship prepares to take off. The two try to get back onto the ship, but aren't able to stay on for long, falling off and landing onto Dooku's palace. They go to sneak in to find another way out. The members of the batch on the ship go out of the cargo container to try and find a way to the escape pods, trying to take some treasure with them. Meanwhile, Hunter and Wrecker have made it to the main room of the palace where Dooku set up his base of operations and get into a shootout with the clones. The clones on board of the ship realize that they are going for the escape pods and order for all of them to be launched. And as Hunter and Wrecker are continuing to be pinned down, they use a smoke grenade to create cover, and Wrecker breaks through a hidden hatch in the floor so they could escape. Realizing the only way off of the cargo ship is to launch the cargo and use the repulsors on the cargo containers to escape, effectively making it into an escape pod. The remaining members of the batch return and manage to launch out the cargo containers. Although the jets don't activate immediately, they do manage to activate and it crashes to the side of a cliff. And although it is there, it quickly tips over and knocking over cargo towards the batch and greatly injuring Tech's leg. Managing to make it out of the cargo container, Omega wants to go back in to get some treasure, but the remaining members of the batch tell her that it's a bad idea and they need to go and find cover. Going out into the woods of Sereno, they run into an old Serenian named Ramar Abdul, and they force him to take them to his house. After entering, Omega once again makes a plea to go back and try and gain some of the treasure, and even offers Ramar some of it, but he refuses, saying he does not want it and believing it is cursed, saying that Dooku stole from his own people to help fund his war. Back in the capital of Sereno, Wrecker and Hunter make it to a few decommissioned AATs and look through them for weapons to use. Wrecker notices some stuff he could use to make a portable cannon and asks Hunter to help him assemble it. Asked to spy on Romar, Omega goes down and is quickly shown a toy that is a kaleidoscope, with which he looks through it and is kind of amazed by it, but decides to sneak off and try and go to reclaim some of the treasure. Helping Wrecker build the cannon, Hunter and Wrecker begin to fire upon a V-Wing and some of the clones pursuing them so they can stop the pursuit. And continuing on, they go to escape back to the Marauder. Tech goes to Ramar and helps him reassemble a piece of Serenian history so it can be preserved. But they quickly notice that Omega has run off, and Echo goes to follow her, and Tech limps behind, not being able to keep up with his injured leg. Making it to the container, Echo goes down and is quickly pursued by clones who begin to fire upon him, while Tech is pinned behind a tree, slowly forced to take on the clones that have surrounded him, although he does get some help from Romar. Omega, still trying to get the treasure, is eventually convinced by Echo to leave, and she does apologize for changing their lives, but Echo sees that this is a good thing and thinks that they would most likely be part of the Empire if she did not come into their lives. Just barely able to escape from the crate before it crashes to the ground, they are pinned to the side of the mountain as they wait for rescue. Ramar and Tech are quick to go and help rescue them, but are first forced to shoot down a LAAT gunship that is inbound to send reinforcements and take them out. Dropping down a rope and attaching it to a speeder, they are able to help Echo and Omega up and go to escape on the Marauder once it lands. Romar sees them off and gives Omega the kaleidoscope. Back on the Marauder, as they escape from Sereno, Omega and Echo do have a moment. Back on Sereno, Admiral Rampart arrives and meets with the clone commander, who tells him that the Bad Batch are still alive. Wanting to cover up for his mistake, he orders the clone to falsify a report saying that they were not here. When he refuses, Rampart executes the clone to keep his secret and to falsify the report himself. An Imperial governor is sent to an Outer Rim world to go and occupy it, arriving with a small group of troopers. He tries to intimidate the rightful governor of the planet, but she quickly has dozens of reactivated B-1 battle droids surround them and take them prisoner. Crosshair is called in to go onto the mission to rescue the Imperial governor and take out the reactivated separatist droids. He is also questioned why he returned to the Empire after being left for about a month on the landing platform on Kamino. Crosshair tells Rampart that he is loyal to the Empire, and Rampart doesn't trust him yet to go on a mission where he leads, so he tells him he'll be working under a clone commander. This clone commander turns out to be Cody, and the two meet up by a memorial wall for all that were lost in the Clone Wars. On board their attack shuttle, they go through the plan of infiltrating the planet under the disguise of being a diplomatic mission. But on the planet, the two governors are together, and the rightful governor interrogates the Imperial one, telling him that she knows that there is no diplomatic group coming and it's going to be an attack squad. Having their shuttle shot down, they begin to crash towards the planet and are in a great wreckage. Although most of the clones do manage to survive, most of them are too injured to move on. And with this, a smaller group led by Crosshair and Cody move on to take out the separatist forces being used. At first, Crosshair needs to take out the tank and aims his sniper rifle directly into the barrel. Firing into it, the tank explodes in a massive explosion. Cody and Crosshair move into the city and run into a family. Although Cody wants to reassure them, they are scared of them and run into their homes to hide. They are quickly ambushed by droidekas and are pinned down for a little bit, although they do manage to take them all out. Continuing on, they are ambushed by commando droids and are forced to fight them off as they head up the tower to go and rescue the Imperial Governor. Although they are pinned down for a moment, Crosshair is injured and asks Cody to toss one of his reflective discs so he can take a shot to take out the tactical droid. With it, Cody does toss it, and Crosshair is able to make a near impossible shot, taking out all of the commando droids and the tactical droid. The planet's governor holds the Imperial governor hostage and begs for them to go and just leave and find a way for her people to be free. And Cody removes his helmet and drops his weapon to try and find a peaceful solution. The planet's governor decides to let the Imperial governor go, but with it, she tells Cody of how Dooku was right and was able to predict this, and that the Empire was inevitable, but with it, she still decides to let the Imperial governor go to try and have peace. Immediately after, the Imperial governor tells Cody to fire upon her and execute her. Cody is trying to make sense of what to do with it, if he should follow the orders or not, but Crosshair coldly just fires upon her and executes her without a second thought. Still troubled by what has happened, Cody goes to board onto the shuttle to return to the Imperial base. While there, he begins to discuss with Crosshair the morality of what they are doing, and with it, he tells him that the difference between them and droids is they can both make their own decisions, but they also have to live with the decisions that they have made. Crosshair is once again called to meet with Rampart, and with it, he is assigned a new mission with a new clone commander, and he asks why he is not with Commander Cody again. And Rampart tells him that Cody has gone AWOL and begins to question Crosshair's loyalty, since so many people that were close to him turned out to be traitors to the Empire. Crosshair walks away alone, preparing for his next mission. As Hunter and Echo on a mission for Sid, the remaining members of the Bad Batch hang out at Sid's place and are quickly asked by Sid to join her on a mission to be the muscle to protect her. They are brought to a riot racing course where Sid shows them her droid pilot named Teo, and they see him win a race. They meet with the droid who is very cocky about his skills and is bragging about his victory. They are then confronted by an old acquaintance of Sid named Melji, and he wants to place a bet with Sid that his racer will win, and Sid accepts the bet. During the race, Teo does lose, with Melji's racer going and using a saw to destroy his racer, and with it, he crashes and is destroyed. They go and check on the wreckage of the speeder, although they see they can repair it. It is in great damage, and they'd have to repair that in Teo, but Melji comes to collect his payment for the bet, and Sid clearly does not have the money. And before a fight could break out, knowing that it's not going to turn out well, Omega goes and makes a deal for a second race with a double or nothing bet. And with this, Melji agrees and gives them a day to prepare for it and repair the speeder and Teo, but does take Sid as collateral. Tech goes to repair Teo, and Teo is complaining a lot during it, but this starts to work out as he finishes repairing him and prepares for the race. Melji goes and confronts Sid and thinks that she hasn't changed that much, and she says that she has. Tech uses his analytical skills to try and figure out what the best course is for victory and the best strategy. And Teo says that there is no strategy in it, and it's just about being a great racer, and begins to lecture Tech and walks out towards the course where he is hit by a speeder. The damage is too great, and he is not able to race anymore, and with this, Melji thinks that he has won the bet since they have to back out of it, but Tech decides to race himself and gets prepared to go and get on the course. Tech stays in last place for a while, using it to watch as the other racers go and figure out strategies to take them down and pass them up. He quickly realizes he is not going fast enough and stops by the crew pits, dropping off his weapon system so he can move even faster. Using some smart moves going down the deadly left tunnel and using one of the racers to take out Melji's lead racer, he manages to win the race, and is kind of shocked by the fact that everyone is surprised that he won, since he used a good strategy and with it was able to win the race through that. The batch go and collect Sid from Melji, who does not want to have a fight and honors the bet, but he does go and warn the batch before they leave that they don't really know who Sid is, and that she will eventually betray them. While going through a junkyard looking for parts they need, Omega finds a few pieces of scrap that she is interested in. Back at Sid's cantina, Sid's friend Fee is going and wowing some of the patrons with stories of her adventures. When Omega returns with Wrecker, she shows off some of the items that she found, and one of them turns out to be a compass to some kind of treasure. After landing on the planet, the Bad Batch notice that the compass has activated and is leading them towards the treasure. They come to what seems to be a dead end, but Fee quickly realizes that it is a cave entrance that has been blocked off, and asks Wrecker to help clear the area. After he does, they enter into the cave. Entering into a chamber, they notice that it's some kind of puzzle and need to figure out what it is. After initially failing and being trapped in, Omega looks through the compass and notices that there are symbols that need to line up. After lining them up, the exit reopens and an entrance to go deeper into the cave opens up. The Bad Batch continue on, but are quickly ambushed by a native predator of the planet, and after firing upon it, the roof begins to collapse and the Bad Batch are separated. And with it, some of the members who are on the other side of the wall go and go the long way around, while the others move forward to continue on the path that they're on. And continuing on that path, Hunter nearly falls to his death, but manages to toss up one of his grapple hooks that Omega and Fi catch and help him back up. Looking around, they are able to get to a small thing that Omega places the compass into, and that turns the ceiling around and creates a safe path for them to cross on. The Bad Batch reunite at another door, which leads them to the crystal which Fi removes from its base. And this causes a massive laser to shoot out of the mountain, and with it, it begins to move around and change, as it's revealed that this is not a mountain, but is instead some kind of weapon that belonged to an ancient civilization that was only kept off by this crystal. The creature from before once again attacks and nearly knocks Fi off of the robot, but Hunter is able to save her. Wrecker manages to throw the creature out of one of the windows of the weapon, and they return the crystal to the base, and this time instead of shutting it down, it causes the weapon to self-destruct, and this just barely manages to save the Havoc Marauder, which the weapon was about to fire on. The Bad Batch and Fi exit out of the wreckage of the weapon, and after they have got out, Fi begins to tell them of other artifacts she knows of, and that the adventure wasn't completely pointless, and Hunter is just glad that they were able to keep this weapon from falling into other people's hands. The Bad Batch are sent on a mission to bring chain codes to a group of droids. While doing this, Omega feels like something is off and goes to look around and sees some of the droids torturing a young Wookiee. And Omega decides to go and help this young Wookiee, taking out one of the droids as the Wookiee goes and takes out the others with Omega. Echo goes and finds the two, and the Wookiee is completely terrified of Echo and does not want to be by him, but Omega reassures him that he is a friend. The other members of the Bad Batch watch the droids go off and find it suspicious, and with them hearing sounds of a battle in the background, they're almost certain that Omega has done something. The droids attack the Wookiee once again, but it turns out he is a Jedi. Using the Force, he grabs his lightsaber and uses it to start cutting down droids as the Bad Batch come in to help them escape. And the Wookiee reluctantly joins them, seeing this is his only way out, even though he distrusts the clones for what they have done during Order 66. He knows that if he stays behind, that he's not going to be making it out. And the young Wookiee stays in the back, not wanting to be by any of the clones since he does not trust them. And with this, Omega comes with Hunter and a few of the other members of the Bad Batch, who try to reassure the young Wookiee that they are on his side and they refuse to execute Order 66. With it, the young Wookiee reveals his name is Gunji and he wants to return to Kashyyyk. And the batch discuss it and decide to go and take him there to a village that they know of. And flying in, they notice there's been some damage to the planet, but for now it is at least not extreme. Landing on the planet, they need to make sure they are careful since the lower levels of Kashyyyk are very dangerous and there can be Imperial troops anywhere. They quickly learn this when they are surrounded by Kinraths, spiders native to Kashyyyk, but Gunji does tell them that as long as they don't attack the Kinraths will not attack them. Making it to the village, they see that the village has been completely destroyed and are very saddened by this, but realize there has to be more coming around and begin to look, and they soon come across a group of Trandoshans that have been armed by the Imperials. Gunji rushes in to go and take down the Trandoshans and rescue a Wookiee prisoner from them, and with it, he does go and rescues this Wookiee with the help of the Bad Batch, who goes off to get reinforcements, and arrives with them managing to take down the Trandoshans. The Bad Batch meet up with some of the Wookiees and begin to explain their situation, explaining everything that happened with Gungi and how they're here to return him. With it, the village elder does accept them. Meanwhile, back at the attack site, a group of Trandoshans and clones come in and begin to investigate. They see there are lightsaber marks on the tanks and quickly realize that there is a Jedi here, and the clone wants to call this into the Empire, but the Trandoshan says that they can handle it. Hunter and the other members of the Bad Batch begin to talk with the Wookiee Elder once again. Knowing an attack is incoming, Echo convinces Hunter that they need to help the Wookiees since they are their allies and help them greatly during the Clone Wars. And Hunter does agree and says he will help them defend their village. And the Wookiees go up to one of the great trees of Kashyyyk and go to it and ask the tree for help. Omega asks what is going on, and it is explained to her that the Wookiees believe that the trees are the ones that control the planet and they are asking it for help, and Hunter says that they'll take all the help that they can get. The Bad Batch go and ambush the Trandoshans with a few clones while they are moving through the forests of Kashyyyk. They do manage to get some pretty major victories against them, destroying some of the tanks and lowering them towards the Kinraths. And the Kinraths begin to attack the Trandoshans and clones, who begin to fire upon them. And Gungi confronted the head Trandoshan, who is attacked by one of the Kinraths, and Gungi just simply steps away as the Kinraths tie up the Trandoshan and takes him away. The Bad Batch celebrate with the Wookiees for their great victory. Meanwhile, Omega goes with Gungi and thanks the trees for helping them in this fight. Hunter and the Elder go and discuss how they are children, but the circumstances of the end of the Clone Wars and the rise of the Empire have forced them to grow up, and it is quite tragic. At a clone bar on Coruscant, two of the clones discuss what they've done at Kamino and how hard it is to live with it. It's something that you know is clearly wrong, and one of them says that they are threatening Rampart, telling him to reveal what actually happened there, or they will reveal it themselves. The other clone tells him that it's not a good idea, and Rampart is very powerful. This clone named Slip follows his friend outside of the bar, where his friend is assassinated, and from this point, he is devastated by what has happened to him, but does manage to escape from the assassin, who begins to open fire on him. In the Imperial Senate, the debate once again begins to if the fact that they should or should not begin to conscript troopers into Imperial service. And with it, on one side are senators like Bail Organa and Rio Chuchi of Pantora. And Senator Chuchi is very strong into clone rights, saying that they need to protect the rights of these clones and give them some kind of pension for them to be able to live on after they serve as Imperial troops and are phased out by the Empire, since they did so much to protect them during the Clone Wars. Vice Admiral Rampart is against this, saying that the budget isn't big enough and doesn't really like clones, but doesn't make that public. With it, he is pushing greatly for this to happen, and it's one of his main goals in the Senate. And going to everyone, he believes that this is essential for security against the growing threats in the mid to outer rim, and is supported by many people inside of different groups like the Banking Clan. And after the meeting of the Senate, Rampart goes and meets with Grand Vizier Masamita, and the two discuss how he has to go and get this passed with the Senate, and they were given a lot of promises by Tarkin and others that he'll be able to do it. Rampart ensures that after he deals with Chuchi's demands, which he'll be able to find loopholes to get out of, that they will go and be able to get this law passed. And Amita doubts him, but tells him he still has time to do it. Senator Chuchi goes and meets with the clone troopers and tries to negotiate with them for them to be able to give her information for what they'll need when they go into retirement. The clones say that they don't want to retire, but she points out they eventually will and need some way out of it and something to live off of once they do, and their accelerated agent catches up with them, and the clones begin to discuss this and ultimately reach a good deal with the senator, who, before she leaves, is pulled over by the clone trooper Slip, and he begins to tell her the truth of what happened to Kamino and how Rampart destroyed it. He then runs off since he doesn't trust anyone and wants to call for help, which he does. Senator Chuchi meets with Vice Admiral Rampart and begins to see many holes in his story and becoming suspicious of him. She asks her guards to look into Slip and to try and find him. While she does some investigating of her own, she's given a mysterious contact where she goes and meets up with Bail Organa, who begins to tell her of some of the suspicious things going on and that she should be careful, but gives her a few hints and says that they really do need someone to testify to what happened in Kamino. And Rampart goes and contacts his assassin, telling them that they have to go and assassinate this clone and Senator Chuchi if she is involved with it. And this is getting very dangerous, that there's no way that could be traced back to him, and it's of vital importance. The assassin says it'll be done and logs off. Chuchi finds Slip and tries to convince him to go and join up with her and testify before the Senate. He does not think that she will be able to keep him alive long enough to do it, and tells her that she doesn't even need him because he has a backup of the Order and of everything that happened on Rampart's Star Destroyer, and with it, he is shot down by the assassin. Senator Chuchi tries to escape with her security force, but they are slowly picked off as they are forced to hide inside of a warehouse on Coruscant. They make it inside, and the guard tries to hold the assassin off but is quickly shot down. Chuchi climbs up and sees a figure coming out of the smoke and thinks that this is the assassin, but the man shoots the assassin with a stun bolt, knocking him out, and it is revealed that it is actually Captain Rex, who was coming to help his fellow clone, but got there too late. Hearing the blaster fire, he went in and was able to rescue Senator Chuchi, who he has served with before back in the Clone Wars. They learn the assassin was actually a clone who has no identifying marks on him and are very confused by it, and Rex thinks they need to interrogate him, so they bring him to the Martez sisters' garage where he begins his interrogation, but the clone quickly refuses to tell them anything and bites a capsule that kills him instantly. And knowing that they need help, Rex goes to contact the Bad Batch. Back on Ord Mantell, Echo goes and talks with Omega and tells her how he's very grateful to the Bad Batch because he would still be a prisoner without them and doesn't really like being by himself or with his own thoughts after being held for so long by the Separatists. And with it, he goes over to the rest of the batch as they are contacted by Rex, who asks them to come to Coruscant, but there's not much he can tell them over a transmission, and gives them a way to get into the planet under Imperial security. Using this, they fly into Coruscant, going into the wells that lead to the lower levels. They land at the shop and begin to discuss what is going on. And after learning of everything and seeing the body of the clone that was sent to assassinate Chuchi, they decide that this is a mission that they have to go on and agree to help Rex. Omega is sent to be with Senator Chuchi and be an aide to her, as Rex and the rest of the members of the Bad Batch go to infiltrate Rampart's Venator Star Destroyer, which is currently being refitted, and get the information from the backup logs, which were hidden there by slip. Inside of the Senate, Chuchi begins to explain what a senator does to Omega, and after this, they also go and meet with Bail Organa, who gives them the idea that they also need a witness to help make us with credibility, and they go to the Kaminoan Senator Bertoni, who has been recently disgraced and pushed out of the spotlight when the Empire began to rise to power. Meeting with Senator Bertoni, they do have a hard time convincing her, but do manage to convince her to testify against Rampart, since he did go on to destroy Kamino, and with it they have a small victory, but still need the evidence that the Bad Batch are going to get to be able to really get Rampart and expose what he's done. At the Venator shipyard, the Bad Batch do manage to infiltrate the shipyard using different pipes under the base, and with it they do get inside and manage to hack their way in. With it they do manage to infiltrate the Venator pretty easily, using one of the cargo ships to hide under and slightly hijacking it. They get it close enough to the Venator for them to fall off, rolled over, and be able to sneak in. They make it up to the bridge with relatively no problems, but they do see a problem when they have to turn the ship on to be able to access the backup logs, and that will surely alert the clone troopers there. And it does. The clone troopers quickly swarm the bridge as the Bad Batch get into a firefight with them, as Tech and Echo go to download the information from the databanks. And while doing it, they also access the turrets of the ship, using it to shoot down the V-Wing starfighters that are flying in to give cover to the troopers, managing to fight off the clones and make it to the escape pods after they have managed to escape out and get the data they need. They launch the escape pods and land close to where they came in. With it, they go and sneak back down and head through the tunnels once again so they could pass off the information to get to the senators. Rampart goes and pushes once again for the Imperial military to be created, as Senator Chuchi pushes back, bringing Senator Bertoni to go and tell how there has been a lot of money diverted from Kamino, and that it was Rampart who was behind it. And Rampart denies it, and Chuchi says that an investigation needs to be made. And then, to stall for time, she accuses him of destroying Kamino, but with no proof. Rampart pushes back, and many of the other senators want her to be kicked out of the Senate. But Omega was able to get the information from the other members of the Bad Batch and passes it on to Senator Organa, who comes out and says he has new information and passes it off to Senator Chuchi. And she explains what it is and how this is information taken from Rampart's Star Destroyer, and it is of him giving the order and the destruction of Kamino. The footage is played to the shock of everyone, and basically on cue, the Emperor rises up from his position and begins to address the Imperial Senate. And Rampart is arrested for his crimes against Kamino. Rampart says he was only following orders, but everyone ignores him as Palpatine begins his speech. And Palpatine says that he is very grateful to Senator Chuchi for exposing the corruption in his empire. But with it, he says that this just proves that they need an Imperial Stormtrooper Corps to replace the clone troopers who were a little too complicit in this, following these orders without question and destroying their home. And with it, this shocks everyone and devastates people like Chuchi and Organa, who were very opposed to this being created. And after this, the Bad Batch and Senator Chuchi and Rex meet up. They begin to discuss how Palpatine had this planned all along, and he wanted them to go and steal stuff from Rampart's Star Destroyer and be able to expose him. He knew this was going to happen and used this opportunity to push his stormtroopers to be created, and they realize that they have truly doomed the fate of all clones. Senator Chuchi says she will continue to fight for the clones in the Senate, but realizes that things are pretty bad now, and they're almost certainly going to be getting worse. The Bad Batch prepare to leave, but to Omega's shock, they all go to Echo and begin to wish him good luck, and that they're going to miss him. Omega is very confused, and Echo turns to her and begins to explain that he can't take these injustices going on any longer, and he's going to stay with Rex to help and protect clone troopers. Omega is shocked by this and says that she'll miss him, but Echo tells her that he will be back soon and she needs to keep up with her training. He goes to stay with Rex as he watches the Bad Batch leave. The Bad Batch are sent to a mine to go and get all remaining Ipsium from it, which is a highly valuable but explosive compound that Sid wants to have from this mine she has purchased. And with it, they point out how there is a lot of activity here with people trying to steal stuff and leave Wrecker and Omega behind to go and guard, since they have lost Echo and need to have a little more diversity in the group and try and get things done with them being one man down. And Tech is quickly able to go and find some of the Ipsium, but with it, he notices that there's no safe way for them to be able to reach it, and realizes that they need Omega to get up there. And at the time, Omega and Wrecker are talking about how Echo left and how it's a lot more devastating for Omega, and Wrecker has come to accept it. And with this, Omega is called in and goes to the mine and helps them extract all the Ipsium that is inside of it. At the Marauder, a mysterious person walks up to it and attempts to sneak in. And after succeeding, they take the ship and fly off. Hunter is able to recognize this before the rest of his heightened senses, and they can only watch as it flies off. And they see a massive storm incoming and know that they need to get somewhere where they can take shelter. And with it, they have to go to the nearest town, which is a very long walk away. And on the walk there, the Bad Batch begin to break apart as they begin to argue about things going on, as they were blaming Wrecker for having the ship stolen since he was supposed to watch it. But he goes and tosses the blame on Tech for landing the ship so far away, and Tech points out that was the closest place he could land it, and it wouldn't have been safe to land it anywhere else. But then Omega is pretty devastated by this, and then she begins to be suspicious as the others notice that a stampede is heading towards them. And with it, they try and run away and find somewhere safe. They eventually do get a place to grapple, but Wrecker loses the Ipsium, and Tech tells him he has to go back to get it and protect them, or else they'll all be dead. And Wrecker drops down and is forced to use his body to shield the Ipsium as the Stampede runs past him. And the batch soon realize that the Stampede was coming because the storm was right behind them, and they're caught in it. Tech, who took the Ipsium from Wrecker, who was complaining about being trampled and how he is to carry everything, and Tech thinks he can do better. And with it, they are getting worse and worse with the conditions of the storm and between each other, and are quickly forced to hide in a cave where Tech loses the Ipsium in the storm and it flies into the entrance, blowing it and trapping them inside. And the Bad Batch are in a pretty bad spot where they're trapped inside of this cave and seemingly have no way out, and will have to slowly unbury the entrance. And with it, things get more intense as Tech and Omega get into an argument about Echo leaving and Tech being very cold about everything, and this really hurts Omega, who decides that she needs some alone time and leaves the rest of the Bad Batch at the former entrance to the cave. On her own, Omega turns off her light and just wants to be with herself until she realizes there's an Ipsium deposit nearby and decides to go and check it out. Things are getting worse between the other members of the batch as Wrecker is getting really furious with having to move all of this out and realizes it will take days. And with this, at least, Tech takes responsibility and says that him dropping the Ipsium was totally on him, and he's the reason that they are trapped in here. And with it, he says that he'll go and find some Ipsium to go and make up for this so they can try and blow a hole in the entrance to get out. And with it, he finds Omega, who is already mining out the Ipsium. And with it, she came to the same conclusion as him that if they're able to get some, they could use it to make an explosion so they can get out of the cave. Omega asks him if he even trusts her to do this job, and he simply responds that he knows that she can complete it. And although Omega has managed to get most of the Ipsium out for the vials that they have, she quickly reaches over to extract the rest of it into the vial, but falls, and with it, Tech tries to go and rescue her, but he is too late and she falls down the cavern, and Tech jumps after her. Luckily enough, they land in water, and with it, they are being pulled away by the current, and with it, they are pulled to a cavern, and in there, they notice a small bit of daylight, which means they can escape there if they can just get the Ipsium that they recently mined over here to blow a hole in the wall. Luckily, their comms work, and they are able to contact Hunter and Wrecker and tell them to come after them in the hole, drop down, and make sure to secure the Ipsium so they can use it to get out of there. While waiting for the other members of the batch, Omega and Tech begin to discuss what happened earlier, and Tech does apologize. But he explains how he expresses his emotions differently, and with it, that just doesn't mean he doesn't still feel them. He is just reacting in a different way to other people. And with it, Omega does take us into comfort and realizes that they'll find a way out of this. And with this, the other members of the batch come and they set up the Ipsium. Tech takes the shot, since he has the most precise shot of the remaining members of the group. With it, they do manage to go and blow a hole in the wall and go out. Using the electro binoculars, they see that they are within a decent distance of the town and begin to go for the final part of the journey to get there. And once they do, they realize that the town has been abandoned and think that this has been ultimately pointless. But Tech points out he'll be able to get a long range transmission out with the equipment they have here, and they go to contact Sid. And Sid is very reluctant to help them until Tech points out all the things they did to help her and caves in, saying that she will send them help in a few days. Hunter points out that they don't have enough rations to last a few days, but Sid just ends the transmission. And after this, Hunter notices that the storm is once again incoming and they don't have much cover there. The Bad Batch work on repairing a speeder so they can reach a local town, and Omega has an idea to go and try and track Gonki so they can find where their ship is and they can get off the planet. The thief is revealed to be a young man named Benny, and with it he calls a man named Mako to go and give him the ship to be able to go and earn some food. Landing there, Mako is a little furious with him, saying that this could cause a lot of problems, but he does accept it and gives him Gonki as a gift. Managing to lock onto Gonki's signal, the Bad Batch go to follow it so they can possibly find their ship, and with it they go and are eventually able to find the thief and threaten Benny to bring him to their ship, and he agrees to do just that. Looking over the schematics, they realize that there's only one way in for them so they don't set off the Ipsium in a blaster fight, and that is to go through one of the many chimneys while it has a break period from exhausting out smoke, and Hunter goes down and quickly encounters a droid down there, forced to wait up there for a few seconds. He knows he has to get down, quickly taking out the droid. He just barely manages to escape as another blast of fire and smoke come up. Hunter manages to turn it off, and the rest of the batch and Benny come down so they can enter into the facility. Making it to the ship, they quickly realize that the hyperdrive has been removed and that Mako is stripping the ships for parts. And with that, they tell Benny that he has to stay with them until they're able to take the ship out, and they need someone to go into the tower to disable the ray shield. And since they don't trust Benny, they're sending Omega with him. Mako, meanwhile, is feasting on food and has to go out to tell who the top earner is. Benny goes up to steal the card to access the tower, and with it, he does manage to get it, but doesn't want to go back with Omega immediately and wants to see who the top earner is, and is furious when he learns it's not him. And they both watch as everyone fights over just getting a little bit of a drink since it is so hard to get on their planet, with them being told that the Ipsium mine has been degraded and it's harder for them to make money. Benny makes it to the tower with Omega and decides to contact Mako to tell him what is going on as Omega begins to download the information she needs and decides to share her rations with Benny since she finds it so wrong that they have to compete for food and water. The Bad Batch are quickly spotted as they are trying to repair the Marauder, and they aren't able to catch the people in time. Omega makes a shocking discovery that Mako is lying about the Ipsium and it is fully intact and is at its full sale value, and he is lying to everyone as he takes in all the profits. Although Benny does take the information, he has no time to read it as Mako, who was alerted by Benny, comes in to take Omega prisoner. Benny does apologize, but he is told that he will most likely be top earner for turning in these thieves. The Bad Batch confront Mako on a bridge, and he says they shouldn't fire blasters here, but they say they are precise enough shots to not set off the Ipsium. And with it, he says that there's another reason they shouldn't, and shows Omega as his prisoner and threatens to have her be dropped to her death if they don't surrender. The Bad Batch do surrender, and he says that they're going to work for 10 years in the mines as punishment. But Benny, reading the information that Omega was able to pull out, quickly realizes that everything is true and they're being lied to, he exposes Mako, and everyone besides Mako's personal droids turn on him. Hunter uses a grapple hook, and seeing this, Omega knocks the droid that's holding her prisoner off and goes down where Hunter is able to save her. The rest of the droids are taken out by the Bad Batch, and Mako is alone and tries to fight off everyone but slips and falls. Trying to hang on desperately, he reaches up towards Benny, who wants to help him, but knows he can't make it up and wants to just take someone down with him. And Benny is able to escape as Mako falls to his death. Benny goes to the Bad Batch as they prepare to leave, returning everything that was taken from them. He does apologize once again and tells them if they ever need a thief for a job, that he'll be there to help them. And ultimately, he is looking forward to being able to be in his home, and with it, they are going to be able to equally share the profits from the Ipsium now. And he watches as the Bad Batch leave. On an Imperial ship, a clone commando is ambushed by an unknown creature, and with this, the ship's crew has been taken down and it crashes onto a planet. Meanwhile, on the world of Wayland, at the facility Mount Tantus, one of the Imperials goes to visit his longtime friend, Nalase, and the two begin to talk about her working for the Empire, and she refuses to, so they're the ones who went and destroyed her homeworld of Camino. The Bad Batch are furious at Sid for refusing to pick them up on the planet, and do not want to be working for her. With it, she tries to convince him to this job and continues to push up how much percent they get until she says they get half of the reward. And with this, the Bad Batch are furious and disconnect the communication with her, and they begin to talk about leaving Sid's employ. And with this, Tech points out that she does have a lot on them, and that they should be careful and try to do this diplomatically. And the best thing for them to do is to complete this last mission for her and then part ways with her. The Batch land on the planet and begin to look around. With it, they quickly enter into the ship and begin to investigate to see what happened to the crew and to everyone else on the ship. And while looking around, they begin to notice very odd things with scratch marks, and that it seems some kind of creature got loose. And this makes them very nervous and split up while Tech goes to check the bridge. The rest go to investigate the ship. They are quickly confronted by some kind of beast, and with this, they begin to fire upon it, but see that their weapons have no effect on it, and it continues to go on a rampage, heading towards the engine of the ship, which it begins to drain the power out of, and cause an explosion, making it able to escape out into the planet. Tech and Omega stay behind as the rest of the batch try to hunt down the creature that has escaped, seeing it as their responsibility, since they're the ones who let it get loose. The creature manages to make it to the power plant, where it begins to feed on the energy and begins to cause a blackout in the nearby town. And with this, Tech manages to break into the encrypted files with Omega's help and familiarity with the cloning equipment, and quickly realizes that this is the clone of the Zillo Beast, which attacked Coruscant during the Clone Wars. Tech tells them they have to keep him away from any power sources, but it is too late as the Zillo Beast has already absorbed energy from the power core, and with it has grown to a massive size and prepares to go on a rampage. An Imperial fleet arrives, launching squadrons of LAAT gunships and V-Wings to go and take care of the threat of the Zillo Beast. And back on the ship, Tech and Omega are told to get off of it because the Imperials are coming. They begin to run, and the Imperials blow up the ship, and the two are barely able to escape. The batch manage to get away from the Zillo Beast, but are being tracked down by the Imperials, and the Zillo Beast has a laser fired upon it, which was a strategy made up by Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars. This knocks the Zillo Beast out, and it is captured by the Imperials. The Bad Batch watch this and manage to take out the ships that are following them, and quickly pick up Tech and Omega as they manage to escape from the planet. The Zillo Beast is put into a containment facility, and the Bad Batch begin to look into the data and realize that Kamino was not destroyed to get rid of the clones, but so the Empire could have a monopoly on cloning. And with this, the Imperials begin to discuss what happened with the Zillo Beast, talking about how they have taken all the civilians that saw the Zillo Beast into custody, and begin to discuss the people that were on the shuttle that managed to escape that do know about the Zillo Beast, and the clone commando that was talking to the Imperial is sent off on a mission to go and figure out who these people were. And then the Imperial goes to meet with the Kaminoan governor and begins to discuss how to motivate Nala Se, and he tells him to go and kidnap Omega, and Nala Se will do anything, and he will tell more for his freedom, and they go to continue their conversation in private. Crosshair watches as more clones begin to complain about how they're being forced into retirement and not knowing what to do, as he is assigned to a new mission under a Imperial lieutenant who has a clear hatred of clones. The two, with a few other clone troopers, head off to a planet to go and secure cargo, and once they land there, they go and meet with the clone commander in charge, who has lost most of his men. His name is Mayday, and with this, he tells them how bad things are and that they need more help. But the lieutenant simply dismisses him and says that they just need to make do with what they have and tells him to stop complaining. Mayday and Crosshair go out to check the perimeter and begin to discuss things. And they discuss that things are getting pretty bad for clones and they're really not sure what they're doing. And Crosshair, although, goes back to his defaults of saying that they're just doing their jobs, he begins to question what's going on. Soon, sensors go off, saying an attack is imminent, and with this, they are going into the base to help defend it. Crosshair takes a sniper position and prefers to aim at one of the troopers, but an explosion temporarily blinds him, and the guy manages to escape with Crosshair's shot, only wounding him. He tries to track him, but he is called back to the base to go and make a report, and since it's going to be suicidal to go into the caves on his own. The lieutenant is furious and demands for Mayday and Crosshair to retrieve all of the stolen packages on their own, and when Mayday points out that this is next to impossible, the lieutenant does not care and tells them that they have to figure out how to do it and forces them to go off. The two clones go through the tunnels and discover the body of the man that Crosshair shot, who was left alone by his companions. And Crosshair makes a cold remark that they shouldn't have dragged dead weight, and it was a white student, and his quickly growing friend makes a joke to not die in his watch, and Crosshair continues on, stepping on a landmine. Mayday goes to disable it, and is very careful, saying that they don't have the equipment to properly do it, but he's found ways around. And with this, he goes around the corner after he has set little pieces to hold it in, and Crosshair doubts him, saying that if he was so confident in it, why isn't he staying around? And Mayday simply says that he's not stupid, and if something does go wrong, it wasn't going to be good for him to be there. And Crosshair steps off, and it turns out to work, and the two continue on to continue their mission. When they reach the enemy base, they begin to scope it out, and going in, they toss a stun grenade in, and begin to fight through the enemy forces. They're slowly picking them off, but soon they'll soon be overrun. And with this, Crosshair shoots an explosive and uses that to get them away. And through this, some of the cargo has spilled out, and they go to investigate what it is and learn that it is armor for the new Imperial Stormtroopers that was recently passed by the Imperial Senate. And with this, they're both devastated, but begin to run in panic as an avalanche caused by the explosion begins to come down towards them. Both clones are buried, but Crosshair is able to dig himself out and goes to Mayday, where he digs through the snow, finding him, and Mayday says that he's not going to make it and to just leave him behind, but Crosshair refuses, pulling him out of the snow and dragging him to the base. The Imperials are just simply loading up the cargo, not even aware that the other two clones are missing, and are quickly in shock when the two clones come back, and with it, Lieutenant sends him off, and Crosshair and Mayday come down as Crosshair begs for medical help for Mayday, and Lieutenant refuses to give it, saying that the clones are expendable, and Crosshair watches in horror as Mayday passes away, and Lieutenant begins to go into Crosshair, telling him that if he ever questions his orders again, that he'll be getting a fate worse than Mayday. And with this, Crosshair looks up in despair and looks upon the birds and wishes to be free. And calling the lieutenant's name one more time, he takes out his blaster, fires it, and kills the lieutenant. Too tired to even fight back, Crosshair just passes out and lets himself be taken into Imperial custody. Crosshair eventually awakens in a lab where Imperial scientists prepare to do horrific experiments on him. As he tries to get free, he sees that it's hopeless and is knocked out by the drugs put into him. The Bad Batch go on a mission with Vi, and she is trying to acquire an artifact from Umbire. With this, Hunter is carefully listening in to see what traps are being had, and the seller tries to poison Vi. After she realizes this, she puts the drink to the side, and the seller releases a poisonous creature to go and kill Vi, but being able to pay attention and use his skills, Hunter throws his knife, killing the small insect, and this causes a firefight to break out. And taking both the artifact and the credits, the Bad Batch and Vi manage to escape to their ship and off the planet. On their ship, they are given a threatening message by Sid, who tells them that they need to return because she has information on them, and she is losing money from them abandoning her. And the Bad Batch, although are worried, want to stay away from Sid, and Vi suggests for them to go to a planet with her, and the Bad Batch go and land upon the planet. Learning this planet is named Pabu, and that they are actually here for Vi to be bringing artifacts of lost civilizations with the people being refugees to them, and she meets up with the village elder and reveals how they're close friends, and she also introduces Omega to his daughter so they can start to become friends. The Bad Batch begin to talk with him and begin to get acquainted with the locals and see how they are all refugees but also all know each other and really work together. They go off to have a feast with the elder, and he begins to show them around once more, and Omega begins to talk with her new friend, being amazed by the wildlife and showing joy that she hasn't shown in such a long time. Beginning the feast, they begin to have a really enjoyable time, and Omega goes down to see the sunset on a boat, and Hunter approves of this. As she leaves, they continue to discuss things about the planet. As V shows Tech the lights going off in the city and thinks that's really amazing, and Tech also agrees with this. They are quickly suffered by a ground quake, which Hunter is able to sense a little bit in advance, and although they think that it's not much of a problem, Hunter is able to sense with his abilities that things are going to get far worse, and the sea begins to recede as a giant tidal wave begins to come towards the coast of the town, so they have to evacuate it to the upper levels of the mountain. Omega and her new friend are forced to jump off the boat and begin to run to shore so they can escape as Hunter comes down with the Marauder to rescue them. Meanwhile, the rest of the Bad Batch begin to help evacuating the lower levels of the town. Knowing that everyone won't be able to get up by the main path, Fee and Tech begin to drop emergency ladders down to help people get up and cause the amount of people going up just the stairs to be reduced. And with this, Hunter is flying down to go and rescue them and just manages to get them before the wave overtakes them. And the Bad Batch, helping evacuate the lower levels, just barely managed to get everyone to safety. And the next day, although everyone is devastated by the destruction that went down, they're all glad that no one has died, and they begin to discuss rebuilding. And Hunter, seeing how great this place has been for the entire team, decides that they should stay behind and help with the restoration of the town and begin to live there at least for a while. A group of clones who are beginning to question the Imperials have been taken into custody and are preparing to transfer to be Mount Tantus. And a group of clones, led by Echo, go to liberate them. Attacking their ship, they disable its hyperdrive and begin to board it. The Imperials quickly begin to erase all data so they can't be traced back to Mount Tantus. As the clones begin to take the various parts of the ship, freeing the prisoners. Taking the bridge, Echo begins to download what he can before the computers are wiped, and another clone begins to interrogate the commanding officer, who refuses to say anything. Biting down on his capsule, he kills himself. An Imperial control Venator drops out of light speed and begins to launch V-Wings, as the clones just barely manage to escape from the ship. Meanwhile, on Wayland, in the facility of Mount Tantus, Crosshair is taken out of his cell to be interrogated by Dr. Hemlock, who wants to trade information on the Bad Batch and how to find them so he could capture Omega, and in exchange he will give Crosshair his freedom, and telling him that he knows nothing. Hemlock orders for Crosshair to be tortured with a interrogation droid. On Coruscant, after returning from the mission, Chuchi begins to talk to Echo and the captured clones to try and figure out what has been going on. And Echo says he has some information, but it's highly encrypted, and he knows there's one person he could go to be able to decrypt it. Back on Mount Tantus, Crosshair is able to get a blaster and uses it to get his freedom. He continues through the facility, shooting down multiple Imperial troopers and making it to a comm station where he sends a warning to the Bad Batch, telling him that they're going to be hunted down. But before he can do anything else, gas is activated, knocking him out as Dr. Hemlock comes in with disappointment and tells him that he hasn't built up an immunity to this gas like he did. Back on Pebu, the Bad Batch are really enjoying their lives as Hunter continues to discuss how he is not sure if they should stay behind and permanently stay here. Tech is teaching Omega how to fly the Havoc Marauder as he is very stressed out as she does many sharp turns and dives. Omega is droid when Echo returns and meets up with Hunter. When landing, Omega jumps on him and hugs him, missing him a lot, and Echo passes off the information to Tech to look into it. Dr. Hemlock is discussing with Governor Tarkin the many possibilities for his program to be able to be used on clones that are disloyal, and Tarkin demands that he has a full report prepared soon for him. Hemlock agrees and signs off. Hunter and Echo begin to discuss life on Pabu, and Hunter says that he really thinks this is a good thing for the Bad Batch to stay there, but he is not too sure about it. And when they are called back in by Tech to show him what he's found, they're all shocked by the program that they are beginning to learn about. Something is happening to clones, including Crosshair, who has been sent to an unknown facility run by Dr. Hemlock, who they learn has been, during the times of the Republic, fired for unethical work and experiments. This greatly concerns them, but they are not too sure if the warning from Crosshair is a real one or if it's some kind of trap he is setting for them. Back on Mount Tantus, Dr. Hemlock increases the amount of serum he is putting in from the interrogation droid into Crosshair to see how long it will take to break him. The Bad Batch continue to make a plan to save Crosshair if he's truly in danger. For this, they're going to go to the world of Iriadu to try and infiltrate Tarkin's compound to put a tracking device onto Dr. Hemlock's ship to track him back to his base. After going through some other parts of the plan, they go out to say goodbye to some of the people in Pabu and begin to talk to Phee. First, Omega says goodbye, and then Tech just kind of coldly ignores her, although she does have some interest in him. On Iriadu, the meeting between the Imperials begin. As the Bad Batch land on the planet, they begin to move through the forests of the planet to get to Tarkin's main facility. Quickly, they see that the only way is to get across on a rail car and need to deactivate a sensor. Tech uses a grapple gun to get across and hacks in to turn off the sensor for a short period of time. They go and grapple onto the car and move across and begin to infiltrate the facility. The Imperial Summit begins, and they all begin to discuss different things about the Empire and go quickly into Dr. Hemlock's program where he wants to expand cloning and using the current clone troopers as resources. They then begin to discuss what will happen if people figure out what was going on, and Dr. Hemlock assures that he has a very secure facility that leaks won't be coming out of, and the Senate won't hear a thing about this. And he continues to explain just how things are going to be working and that the clones are Imperial property. And Tarkin quickly reassures them that if news ever did leak out, a clone uprising would be put down very quickly. The Bad Batch begin to scope out the hangar and need to head up to one of the control rooms to be able to go through the manifest to figure out which one is Hemlock's ship. So they leave Wrecker and Omega behind to plant the homing device once they figure it out, as the rest go up to begin to investigate into the facility. Tech and Echo begin to hack into the facility's systems and quickly learn that a lot of security cameras are out in a sector of the base. Curious about this and not really knowing what could be going on, Tech and Hunter go in as Echo continues to go into the system to monitor their progress. Omega is told which ship it is, and she's only one small enough to be able to move around the facility and not be caught, hiding behind a box of crates being moved. She's able to easily move over to the ship, but when she does get there and plants the device, things get far more complicated as patrols start to sweep towards her and she's boxed in. Echo creates a distraction using a crane to grab a V-wing and crashes it around. This caused the troopers to be distracted temporarily, but in the command station, they begin to be suspicious with the problems with the sensors and then with the crane, and now that some of the security cameras are out, so they send troops to go investigate into the area where the cameras are out. And in this area, Hunter and Tech quickly discover that explosives have been planted everywhere, and they are trying to figure out if they could disarm it, but are quickly caught by two troopers who they pull weapons on, but they quickly reveal themselves to actually be Saw Gerrera and a group of rebels working with him who are planning to blow up this facility. Although the clones beg them to let them be able to track their target, they see their mission as more important, trying to take out some of the Empire's top minds, and they refuse to do it and just tell them to get out of the facility. As a blaster fire erupts, the Bad Batch and Saw Gerrera's group both go to retreat out of the facility. The security inside of the meeting room is increased as troops come in to guard the Imperials. Tarkin tells them not to worry about anything and they will be perfectly safe inside this room. The Bad Batch manage to reunite and go to escape the facility, making it to one of the rail cars and activate it. Heading down, some Imperial troopers have made it on and they begin to battle them, but Saw Gerrera and his team manage to take a ship for themselves. Escaping, they detonate the explosives, destroying the facility, although keeping the Imperials alive since they weren't able to plant explosives in that part of it. And this disables the tram and keeps the Bad Batch stuck and forced to be in the middle of the Imperial base and freedom. Tech climbs up to the top of the track to try and reactivate the power, and as he does so, they have to fight off the Imperials shooting at them. Back in the facility, Tarkin orders for a V-wing strike to be commenced on the cars, and although the Imperials are questioning his orders because they could be harming their own troops, Tarkin tells them to do it now, and as they begin to open fire, Tech does manage to reconnect the power, but is knocked loose from the train car and it begins to fall. He does manage to fall a little bit, but fires a grapple line up to save himself. But he notices that there is no way for him to get up and tells the Bad Batch to continue on and to go with Plan 99 as he fires upon the cable that's holding the car together, and this knocks it loose as he falls to his death. The car has no brakes and launches forward, crashing through the tunnel and knocking all the members of the Bad Batch out, greatly injuring many of them as Omega blinks in and out of consciousness. She eventually wakes up on Ord Mantell, where Hunter tries to reassure her and comfort her, but she quickly remembers what happened and is greatly devastated by what happened to Tech. And although Hunter and Wrecker are there to comfort her, she is still devastated. And once Wrecker leaves, Hunter begins to discuss with her the plans for the future and that they think that they should permanently retire from being soldiers and move to Pabu to live in peace. And Omega thinks that would be greatly helpful, still traumatized by everything that happened with Tech. And in the bar, Sid gives Wrecker a drink to try and cheer him up after the death of Tech, but Wrecker says it's not going to really help. Echo, who has sustained the least amount of injuries, has stayed with the ship, but is quickly horrified as he sees a Venator Star Destroyer come out of space and launching multiple fighters and gunships to come down to the streets of Ord Mantell. He rushes to go and save his brothers. Back in the bar, Sid begins to apologize to Wrecker, saying that they caused too many problems and made too much noise, and she had no choice to do this. Wrecker begins to ask what she's done as he is beginning to be hit by stun bolts by Imperial commandos who burst into the room. Hearing blaster fire going on, Hunter tells Omega to escape through the mine tunnels, and they will meet her at the ship, but Omega doesn't believe him and knows that Hunter is injured and has no way out, and talks to AZ, telling him that they have to go and rescue the members of the Bad Batch. Hunter goes in and tries to rescue Wrecker, but there are too many Imperial commandos there, and there's nothing much for him to do. Hemlock makes sure to pay off a very disappointed and disgraced Sid off as Hunter watches her go and tells him that he doesn't need to lose another brother like he lost Tech, and shows him Tech's goggles, which were all that managed to be recovered from his body. Devastated, Hunter, not wanting to lose another brother, lets himself be arrested and taken out, and Omega sends AZ off to go find Echo as she tries to force Hemlock to let him go, causing a distraction. Hemlock begs for Omega to come with him and he'll let everyone else go, saying that this isn't really all he needed. He needed her to bring to Nala Se, and while she begins to question it, she doesn't notice that the clone commando Scorch has snuck up behind her and fires a stun bolt at her, knocking her out. Echo manages to steal an Imperial walker and uses it to fire on the troopers escorting Hunter and Wrecker and rescues them. They go and try to save Omega, fighting through the troopers, but are too late as the ship takes off and heads for Wayland. As Hunter and the rest of the Bad Batch are forced to escape into the Marauder, knowing there's nothing they could do to save her for now, they take off and escape from Ord Mantell. As Hunter is aboard the ship, he is devastated by what has happened in this last day, and he swears that he will get Omega back and won't stop trying until he's able to rescue her. On Mount Tantus, Omega is brought to Nala Se and the other Imperials in charge of the facility and is quickly taken inside as Dr. Hemlock begins to discuss with Nala Se how she will be working for them and cooperating, doing the Imperial cloning science, or Omega will be punished in her place, and defeated Nala Se agrees. Inside the facility, Omega watches over Crosshair and tries to see what is wrong with him, but the Imperial scientist there tells her that she did warn Crosshair not to resist, and he didn't listen to her. And then she begins to question Omega if she knows her, and Omega is confused, saying no, as she reveals that she is Omega's sister. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.